Good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon at this point. Thank you so much, Pam. Thank you to you and your team for ensuring that our city continues to have incredibly meaningful and important conversations. Very proud to see you in this leadership role. So round of applause for Pam and the Research Bureau. Please join me also in giving a thank you. I know I'm told I'm between you all and lunch, so I apologize, but thank you in advance to our incredible wait staff and the team who are taking care of us here. And among so many distinguished leaders from all across our city and our communities in the room, there are way too many to go around table by table, and thank you for all the many hats that you wear and contributions to our city in your professional, your personal, your civic capacities. I'm incredibly grateful for all that you do for Boston. I do want to recognize our cabinet members who are here and some fellow elected officials as well. So I'll just run down the list that was provided, and then I'll see who I missed. I'm told that our Chief of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion, Shagun Idowu, is here. Our Chief of Housing, Sheila Dillon, Chief of Policy, Mike Firestone, Chief of Energy, Environment and Open Space, Mariama White-Hammond, our Corporation Counsel, Adam Cederbaum, Chief of Communications, Jessica Pierre, Director of the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency, Stephanie Everett, Senior Advisor on Labor, Lou Mandarini, our Director of Intergovernmental Relations, Claire Kelly, Chief of Community Engagement, Brianna Malore, and our Chief Administrative Officer, Alex Lawrence. Please give a round of applause to our incredibly dedicated team. And I know because I rode over with him from our last event, but somehow he's not on this list and he's referenced later, our very new, as in 2 weeks into his new job, Chief of Planning Arthur Jemison is here as well. Who did I miss from our city cabinet side? Okay, I think they're just not raising their hands. I see some, Mike Christopher's here, other folks are here on our team as well. Thank you. And I want to recognize the elected officials who I get to serve with every day. Incredibly honored to be working alongside them for this moment in our city. City Council President Ed Flynn is here. He's at the same table as City Councilor Michael Flaherty and City Councilor Aaron Murphy. I have City Councilor Ruthi Lujen on my list. I think she's RSVP'd somewhere in the room. And I know I saw a couple former city councilors as well. I saw John Tobin here, but I do want to recognize a few immediately previous City Council presidents. Matt O'Malley is here. Thank you, Matt. And former City Council President Andrea Campbell is here. I see Suffolk County Sheriff Steve Tompkins here. Did I miss any elected officials? Okay, I'm told this was not my job. I really wanted to do it, so I'm sure you're going to hear that all over again later. They deserve the double recognition. So for my remarks today, to talk about where we're headed in the future, I wanted to start 125 years ago in the past. 125 years ago, the Boston Globe ran a headline that read, "Novelty Over." The article described how the recently constructed underground train car between Park Street and Boylston Street stations was already starting to see fewer riders boarding it just to ride for fun. Just 2 days after the nation's first ever subway line opened, apparently the novelty had already worn off. And in its place was everyday efficiency, convenience. Today we take great pride in the fact that we were the first city in the country to make this groundbreaking investment in public transit, innovating with the very first subway tunnel in the nation. But Boston didn't always feel that way. In fact, when it was first introduced, the idea to build an underground subway system was labeled dangerous and radical. Business owners on Tremont Street organized the Anti-Subway League, holding meetings, distributing flyers, lobbying local leaders to vote against this line's creation. They raised aesthetic concerns about digging up the historic Boston Common. They warned that construction would disturb snakes and rats living underground, forcing them up to the surface and into the streets, spreading fear and disease throughout the city. Some pointed out that building the tunnel would require disturbing buried remains, which could bring bad luck and a jinx upon all of Boston forever. And of course, there were concerns about how this might impact our economy. The League's president, W.G. Harris, spoke of the, quote, great disadvantage and damage to business, which will necessarily follow so extensive a tearing up of the street. Many others echoed this, worrying that their businesses would sustain serious losses during a period of heavy construction for something never seen before and never recover after that. Others spoke of the threat to health and property posed by construction that might disrupt sewers, water pipes, and electric wiring. The League eventually collected thousands of signatures from residents and business owners opposing the creation of, quote, any subway in any portion of the city of Boston. Now, as someone who rides the T to work on a regular basis, I won't tell you that it's perfect, but I think we can all agree that a Boston without any T in any portion of the city would not be a better Boston. That's true today, and it became apparent almost immediately after that first line was up and running. Within just 3 years of its construction, Park Street was the 4th most highly used subway station in the world. And in the first 10 years after the T was introduced, Boston's public transit ridership numbers increased by nearly 60%. And in the decades that followed, public transit became the most popular way for residents and visitors alike to access downtown, with the T bringing in roughly half of all downtown foot traffic. The Common was restored, snakes didn't overtake the city, and the business owners on Tremont Street couldn't have been happier. Even more importantly, residents across Boston were connected to jobs, healthcare, education, and housing. Neighborhoods and businesses, parks and libraries, museums, colleges, all suddenly became accessible in ways they hadn't before. Public transit proved to be a public good in the truest sense of the term. It connects us to this day to the places and resources we need to thrive in our communities. It connects us to each other. Today, we have a similar opportunity to connect and transform our city in a moment of urgency and possibility. The urgency is clear. Cities across the country are struggling to fully emerge from the pandemic. Remote and hybrid work have forever changed our economy and the relationship between where we live and what we do. Boston lost roughly 37,000 residents between 2020 and 2021, a little less than 1% of our total population. But working in person at our downtown commercial buildings remains down by nearly a third of pre-pandemic foot traffic. As global competition for talent and capital sharpens in this changed environment of flexibility and remote work, Boston must become a place where people can thrive, where innovators and entrepreneurs from all communities, all walks of life want to be and can afford to stay. At the same time, the pandemic deepened existing inequities across our society, from higher mortality rates within Black communities to the virus's disproportionate impact on women in the workforce and the urgency of climate action. We are at a crossroads, and the perception that inaction is somehow safer, that the status quo comes at no cost, simply isn't true. Our challenges, long predating the pandemic, have been made more complicated, grown more entrenched by our own unwillingness to, as the Anti-Subway League president said, so extensively tear up the street. From deferred maintenance on the T or in our school buildings, skyrocketing housing costs, the deepening racial wealth gap pushing families out of our city, to pollution from increasingly congested roads impacting our long-term health, and the mental health epidemic rooted in trauma and isolation. Addressing our long-standing challenges will require all of us. We'll need to embrace the disruption that can accompany the kind of transformative changes we need right now. We must move away from putting Band-Aids on the symptoms of our problems and invest instead in tackling root causes. Here is where our greatest opportunities lie. In fact, that local government stands the best chance to rebuild our economy, democracy, and communities in this moment. Because as intertwined as our challenges are, so are our solutions. And we are already working hard every day to shift what's possible through setting a foundation for the future, connecting our communities, and delivering on the details of city government. Boston may be known for our history and longevity, but our true legacy is that we have pushed this country to reimagine a foundation for the future time and again, from the birth of our democracy and public education to life-saving technologies, vaccines, innovations. And in 2022, being the leading city for the future means taking action to become the greenest city in America, a city for everyone, where families can thrive. We've built on the foundation grown over centuries of collaboration and ecosystem building through our anchor institutions in healthcare, higher education, to emerge right now in this moment as a national pace setter, a hub for life sciences, clean energy, and mission-driven tech. Now, let us build the workforce of the future to nurture and grow these industries, reflecting the full diversity of our communities here in the birthplace of public education. As early as 1888, kindergartens in Boston were admitting children as young as 3.5 years old. But ironically today, with more definitive science on the significant benefits of early education, we have even more work to do. Between 2017 and 2020, the number of early education centers serving children under the age of 5 in Boston dropped by 24%. We know how crucial these first few years of development are and how powerful it can be to get them right for our littlest leaders, for our families, for our economy. So that's why earlier this year we established the city's first ever Office of Early Childhood, committed to creating universal, affordable, high-quality early education and care for all infants, toddlers, and children under the age of 5. Over the next year, this office will focus on expanding our options for early ed and care and accelerating the creation of a universal pre-K system. This upcoming school year, 1,000 more 4-year-olds and hundreds more 3-year-olds will be enrolled in a quality pre-kindergarten program than when the initiative first began. And we're working to clarify existing siting and funding requirements in the zoning code to embed the centrality of early education and care in Boston's growth. This office will also be leading the way in investing in our workforce by building sustainable career paths for early educators and making life easier for our families by creating a multilingual, one-stop shop for program enrollment. In partnership with the Boston Public Schools, we'll integrate family child care programs with our Universal Pre-K initiative because these community-based programs often offer additional benefits like native language instruction, mixed-age learning environments, and more flexible schedules for working families. More than 1 in 5 family households in Boston have kids under the age of 5. When we invest in meeting the needs of our children, we're investing in Boston's families, in Boston's immigrants, in our entrepreneurs, our essential workers and parents and communities of color, and of course, in our youngest residents, which yields the greatest return on investment of all. We don't just attract the best and brightest minds here in Boston, we grow and raise them, and we're going to do all that we can. Which brings me to my next point, our most important and immediate pipeline for talent and innovation in our city, our schools. As a mom with 2 boys in BPS, I am deeply aware of the potential our education system has to broaden horizons and widen the paths our young people tread. And I'm also aware of the ways in which our current system falls short of that goal. BPS today faces enormous disparities deepened by the pandemic, which need to be addressed with urgency. Over the course of a mayoral term, a child who is just starting kindergarten will be almost finished with elementary school. A student entering high school will be preparing to graduate and leave our Boston Public Schools. There is no time to waste. Earlier this month, we announced a major expansion of Boston's early college and innovation pathways, connecting Boston Public Schools with higher education and private sector partners, including many in this room, to get a head start on training our workforce for the future. We launched our Green New Deal for BPS because healthy, inspiring facilities are critical for rigorous and nurturing learning. And as we near the end of our search for our next school superintendent, we're also changing the structures throughout all of city government to support our school department. City Hall's operations cabinet is growing significantly to share in the community process, design and engineering and construction that will dramatically overhaul our school facilities so the Boston Public Schools have more bandwidth organizationally to focus on teaching and learning. Other city departments are connecting our young people and their families with resources to close the digital divide, address food insecurity, housing instability, and offer more youth jobs than ever before. Because preparing our future leaders to reach their fullest potential means taking a holistic approach to supporting them and the communities that raise them. With this group and so many others across the city, we've discussed the barriers and complexities of how Boston's development and success hasn't been shared equitably across our communities. So we've talked about setting a foundation for the future, now connecting our communities. We all know, we've heard across every single one of our neighborhoods, growing housing costs, made worse by a lack of reliable transportation options, fuels displacement for families across our neighborhoods. It hamstrings companies and organizations looking to recruit and retain talent, especially in this new economic situation. Our charge in this moment is to ensure that Boston's growth connects our communities with thoughtful, comprehensive planning and the infrastructure for mobility and accessibility. Last week, we welcomed our new Chief of Planning to City Hall. Chief Arthur Jemison brings a wealth of expertise, wisdom, and vision to embark on the journey of reorienting our processes and structures towards predictability, resiliency, and affordability in Boston. Together with our chief, our new Director of Operations and Organizational Transformation, Devin Quirk, and a soon-to-be hired Director of Urban Design, we will connect our communities with that foundation for the future, our shared growth. That organizational capacity is backed up by resources for our recovery from the pandemic. We are directing and have before the City Council the bulk of our federal recovery dollars to housing affordability, from preserving existing affordable units to helping finance new, badly needed affordable housing, which will be energy efficient and green, and also boost home ownership. Connecting our communities also means doing more to celebrate and uplift the heart and soul of our city, the arts and culture that bring Boston to life, infuse our neighborhoods with energy and inspiration, and make our city a place that people want to live, work, and play in. The strength and vibrancy of our art scene underpins our community and our economy. Not only are the arts essential for our mental and emotional well-being, they're central to our economic recovery. And yet Boston consistently lags behind our peer cities when it comes to public investments in this critical and joyous engine for future growth. That's why the budget we proposed, and again, going through our process with the City Council, makes a powerful investment in our arts and culture sector through the capital budget, in addition to an unprecedented proposed investment of federal recovery funds as infrastructure for placemaking and integrating arts and culture into every aspect of civic life. The challenges before us aren't new. They're long-standing, complex, and daunting even. But I want to talk to you about what's special about city government, delivering on the details. City government, especially now, is about that fact that there's always room for action at the local level when we're closest to the people. Even in our first 6 months, we've already begun breaking down the details of how municipal government can act with impact. We're putting our money where our mouth is to close the racial wealth gap with a focus on equity in city contracting. Earlier this month, we announced that starting July 1st, City Fresh Foods will, true to their name, provide fresh, nutritious, culturally relevant, and appropriate food for nearly 50,000 Boston Public School students. This vended meals contract is valued at over $17 million. It's the largest non-construction contract the city has ever awarded to a certified Black-owned business, and one based right here in our city and right in Roxbury. As the opioid crisis sweeps through communities across the country, We're looking at the details of how we innovate and measure the impacts of a low-threshold supportive housing approach in partnership with the state and the region to prevent the dangers of encampments in our city and connect residents to the services they need. In the face of accelerating climate change, we're looking at the details of how to transition diesel-polluting school buses to electric, serviced by Madison Park students who will have the training to step into opportunities in the green economy. And with the pandemic deepening a mental health epidemic in our schools, our homes, our communities, at the city level, we're looking at the details and proposing a new behavioral health center to recruit, train, and place clinicians of color and multilingual providers in much-needed roles to meet our communities where they are. We're making plans for water and sewer infrastructure, waste management, curbside composting, and street design that adds up to a healthy resilience for all of us. Our job is to build the trust needed to do big things together by getting the little things right, reimagining what's possible, detail by detail, block by block, week by week. I recently had the honor of writing a letter to be included in the time capsule buried in the center of the new City Hall Plaza that's currently under construction. It's in there alongside Michael Flaherty's business cards and Aaron Murphy's documents and Ed Flynn's papers. And for my part, in the hopes of writing something worthy of the future to be opened 100 years by a future mayor, I looked to the past. I read through time capsule letters from previous mayors throughout our city's history. We found ones from 1830, from 1930, and from 1981. In so many ways, it's very surreal to read the words of predecessors reaching forward through the centuries to talk about their hopes and dreams and fears for our city. There are many differences in those letters in voice and style and in tone, but they all shared two things. First, they all made some attempt at imagining our city's future, even while acknowledging the challenge of trying to picture a world changed by hundreds of years of progress and technological advancement, medical innovation, cultural progress. They tried. There were guesses about cloning, about alternative energy sources, and even how many of the surrounding cities and towns Boston would start to absorb. We didn't quite get there. I think Brookline stopped us. That's okay. And yet, despite all their imagining, the second thing that every single letter shared was the very beginning, the opening salutation. They each began with some version of "Sir" or "Dear Mr. Mayor." For all their determination to dream big and boldly about our future, not a single mayor imagined that someday someone like me or Kim Janey before me would be mayor. And almost certainly, they couldn't have imagined the resources and momentum available to us at this moment to implement lasting changes and build a foundation for a brighter future. So if you take just one thing away from today, let it be this. This moment is proof that we are capable of so much more than we can imagine. We can make transit accessible and housing and high-quality childcare affordable. We can close the gaps in our school system and become the greenest city in America. We can make the arts sustainable and pervasive and build a city that's more connected, equitable, healthy, and joyful. But to do so, we can't be afraid to tear up the street, to act with urgency and put everything back together in a form that is different and bolder than before, to dream more than we have before, and take action together on the details that move us closer, step by step, to the future we deserve. I want to thank you all again for giving me the opportunity to share this vision with you and for convening this conversation. We'll need your partnership in joining us to embrace the possibility that tomorrow holds as well. Thank you so much.